Today is Friday, July 26th, and we're going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post. He is none other than Jon Heyman. John, the trade deadline is right around the corner. We got some action last night. We saw AJ Puck get traded. We saw Randy Arozarena get traded. The trades are starting to come through. And John, how you doing, man? I know this is a busy time for you.
I'm good. I'm good. As you can see, I've got my sweatshirt on. It is freezing out there, although I just checked and it's 68 degrees. But I'm in Miami a lot, so I'm not used to this.
Yeah, no, it's been sweltering in the New York local market, especially, and the teams, one has become very cold and the other one has become very hot. So let's start off. I want to start off with the cold team, the Yankees, right now. John, they have been one of the worst teams in baseball. We all know their record since June 15th. It's not only better than the White Sox right now, and they're the worst team in
Right.
baseball. So it's not been pretty for the Yankees. We know all the stats. There's a lot of needs for this team. But I want to ask you straight up, John, how do you see Brian Cashman and company addressing the holes on this team? Because I know, and you know, there is probably too much for them to address. But I gotta ask you, what are they going to do here at the deadline?
Yeah, I got to commend you for hanging in there. I know this is not easy on you. You know, I mean, it's amazing to see, and Mike Vaccaro wrote about it in the Post today. The world is upside down. We're talking about the team that was the best team in baseball for 2+ months. I think they were 51 and 22. Now, as you mentioned, they're the second worst. It's impossible to be the worst, right? I mean, the White Sox are like all-time bad. They're threatening the Mets, 62 at this point. So it's really incredible that they are 29th best over more than a month. I mean, Aaron Boone finally exploded. He's a very calm guy. It's good to keep that even keel, but I mean, it's pretty amazing. I don't know if you look at it as a positive or a negative that he's kept that even keel. Frankly, I look at it as a negative. He hasn't pulled his team out of it. And, I mean, I wouldn't say it's his fault. They have two players, as Luis Severino pointed out. They got two good hitters, not just good hitters, great hitters,
Right.
all-time great hitters. So, sorry, I checked my
It's okay,
phone at this
John.
time of year. You just never know what's going on, but that wasn't anything to react to at this point. But it's pretty amazing what's going on with the Yankees, and they need to do quite a bit. I know a month ago they were saying, "Oh, we need to get a couple of bullpen pieces, maybe." We'll see. I mean, they got to look at the rotation at this point, and they definitely need to look at offense. I do think Stanton's on the way back. He's within a week, we think. Dominguez, we think he's going to be a good hitter. I know just a rookie, but, and he's been injury prone, but they think 2 weeks for him. So, yeah, two pieces. That will help. That will double the production that they're getting right now. I wouldn't say double because obviously Judge and Soto are the two best hitters in the league, at least, maybe even in baseball. But they need to get offense somehow. The most obvious thing is to look at third base because really they're getting nothing at third base.
Yeah, and you look at the stats, the season that DJ LeMahieu is having is even worse than what Josh Donaldson was having last year, and the Yankees ultimately ended up DFAing him. But John, we know the Yankees still have 2 years left, 15 million per year for
Right.
DJ LeMahieu still on the books after this season. I don't see him going anywhere. So when you're looking at that third base position, who are some names you could potentially see the Yankees possibly looking into?
Yeah, I mean, DJ LeMahieu, a well-respected veteran. Of course, Aaron Hicks was too, and they released him with, I don't know, 25, 30 million to go. So, at some point, I think LeMahieu's going to be a DFA candidate. They're certainly trying to avoid that and giving him chances, and he's solid defensively, even better than solid. But, I mean, you can't have a guy not hitting at all at a time when, Verdugo's not hitting, and certainly they're going to give him some rope, but at some point, you might have to look at replacing left field too. We were celebrating, at least I know I was, the acquisition of Verdugo at the time, but he has done nothing as well. Third base, to me, that is the issue at this point. And I would say, look, they'd love to get Jonathan India, but the Reds are reluctant to trade him. I mean, he's a leader. He's got more years to go. That's the key, really. I mean, he's not a rental. Reds are looking at the rentals, including Frankie Montas. I mean, the Yankees made a play for Frankie Montas in the winter, so you never know. He
Right.
barely pitched for them, but I don't think the fans would celebrate that if they got him. But, India is a guy who would be great if they could get him. Obviously, they've been connected to Jazz Chisholm, who's been playing second base. So I think they were looking at Seattle more than anything because Seattle could go for second base. I don't believe that the Yankees are ready to replace Gleyber Torres, who's actually been their third best hitter in the last couple of weeks, at least. I mean, third best meaning two are all-time great, and then third best is reasonably
Right.
okay at this point. But they could look at him. There's a few other guys they could look at. San Francisco maybe a seller. Matt Chapman maybe. So
But
at this point, we've got teams that are kind of on the bubble. You're not sure which way they're going.
yeah.
We basically have 7 teams that we know are sellers for sure. Certainly, we got to include the Rays in that. Now that they've traded 3 guys already, right? The Rays have traded 3. The Marlins have traded 2. Nobody else has traded anybody really of any note. But we include the Rays in those 7 sellers. But right now, it is a seller's market, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things there, John. So the India stuff is interesting. You saying the Reds are reluctant to trade him. The Mariners, they went out and got a hitter. They needed offense, right? They went and got Randy Rosarena, traded the 12th and 23rd best prospects. We don't know if they're actually going to become anything, but they got offense, and that's what they know they have a shot here. The Yankees, they're only a game and a half behind or a game behind in the Orioles, right? Like, it's crazy that the Orioles have struggled this much considering how much the Yankees have struggled too. So they're still in the AL East race. But John, the way this team and the offense has been constructed, the leadoff and cleanup hitters, the OPS, it's the worst
Yeah.
in 30 years that the Yankees have put together.
Yes.
You couldn't try to be that bad in what they've constructed. And I hear what you're saying. Stanton, Dominguez, right? They're on their way, you would hope. But Dominguez had barely a cup of coffee last year, and Giancarlo, you don't know if he's going to stay healthy, and you hope that he can stay
Right.
healthy,
I
right?
mean, right. I mean, they got to be better than what's going on now. They're having tryouts basically at leadoff and cleanup, and they're back to their original thought, which was Gleyber Torres now at the top of the lineup. So, I mean, maybe that'll work. I don't know, but they basically rotated guys in and out of leadoff and cleanup. Obviously, trying the rookie Rice, who's now struggling a bit
Yeah.
like the rest of them. And, it's an unbelievable situation. It's incredible they're still close. I mean, to be only better than the White Sox for more than a month, this is a streaky team. But, I mean, you can look at it like maybe they'll be on a good streak when October hits, whether they're a wild card or not a wild card. And look, wild card teams have made the World Series and
Correct.
they've won the World Series. So if they don't beat out the Orioles, still, you can still win the World Series as long as you're in the playoffs. And I mean, they've been playing so bad now. You got to wonder, could they blow the playoffs? American League looks a little bit tougher than the National League, although some of those teams in the National League are heating up, right? San
Right.
Diego Mets, there are teams that are heating up. So I'm not going to say, the American League is that tough, but, it's still, they still got to play better than this. If they continue to play like this, I think they got to worry about making the playoffs.
Well, this is a big series for them this weekend against the Red Sox, right? I mean, they're only 3.5 games up at that top wild card spot. Real quick, just a couple of the names I want to throw at you. If you tell me they're even possible or not for the Yankees, Isaac Paredes from the Rays. You say the Rays are sellers. Could that be a name that the Yankees target? You mentioned Chapman. I don't know. They just got Robbie Ray back, so maybe the Giants might start competing a little bit more. Like you said, the National League starting to heat up. A guy like Isaac Paredes, is that someone the Yankees could go after, or is that tough in this market? You've seen Vlad Guerrero's name get thrown out there. I don't know, John. Like, there's not that many answers out there.
No, I mean, the Rays are sellers, and I think they're willing to trade with the Yankees, even though they're the same division. I mean, they're that kind of a team. Paredes still has 3 years to go after this one, so you'd have to give up a lot for him. He's not a good defender at third base, so you now committed to a guy for 3 more years who's basically a hitter and a pull hitter. Doesn't really fit Yankee Stadium if you're a right-handed pull hitter. So there are some questions. I know it sounds good, and everybody right now would be better than LeMahieu or whatever else they're going to put out there. I mean, at this point, J.D. Davis has just got to be rusty. So I'm not even going to blame him. He's got 6 RBIs for the year, but he wasn't good in Oakland. Obviously, you're DFA'd by the A's. You're not good at that point, but he's just rusty too. So they really don't have a starting answer at third base, as we agree. They have to do something. I mean, it's a consideration, but Paredes does fit Houston better, right? Because they could use an upgrade. He can play first base, upgraded first base. Then he can switch over to third because Alex Bregman's a free agent. No sign that he's signing anytime soon with Houston. He's going to be a free agent. He could go anywhere. They've let Correa go. They've let Springer go. This looks like that kind of a situation. He fits them better. They've got the Crawford boxes. I think he's hit 69 home runs as the Tampa Bay Ray. All 69 have been pulled, right? I mean, You can hit home runs to left field in Yankee Stadium. Not easy. Better to get a left-handed hitter than a right-handed hitter. Right? To me, I don't think Paredes is the best fit, but you got to consider everything. Since we've only named 4 people, you better consider anyone who's potentially out there. And so he's a consideration. I don't think that fits the Yankees that well, though.
Yep, understood, John. And finally, to wrap up the Yankees discussion, reliever market. We've seen guys' names like Tanner Scott get thrown out there. Is there any other relievers out there that you think the Yankees could potentially target, or is this going to be like another one of those? Hey, we traded for this guy. His name is Clay Holmes, and then all of a sudden he turns into being the Yankees closer in a couple days.
Yeah, for all the bashing of the Yankees, they are good at turning guys into Clay Holmes or somebody who's pretty good in the bullpen. But at this point, I think, like a lot of teams, they'd be better off getting a great reliever, right? A shutdown reliever. So Tanner Scott has great stuff. There's a million teams that be wanting him. And that to me fits. Another closer would fit. Estevez is out there from the Angels. You hear rumors, maybe San Francisco's great closer, maybe the Twins' great closer. You never know who could be available. And I would look that way, even though I think Holmes is a solid closer. They need big upgrades.
Right.
They need shutdown guys. There are a ton of relievers out there. They're more likely to get somebody to fill in behind Holmes and be a setup man, or I guess in front of him if you're looking at the innings. And there's a ton of them out there. So I'm not going to go over all the names, and it's hard to predict who it's going to be. But they definitely need to get bullpen, which is where they started. We just need a couple bullpen guys. Well, they still need a couple bullpen guys, but now they need more than a couple bullpen guys, and they need obviously hitters. That's first and foremost because their hitting has been atrocious.
Well, speaking of bullpen help, we got to talk about the team in Queens now. Let's go to the Mets, probably the hottest team in baseball. They're being led by ultimately who's turning into an MVP candidate, and Francisco Lindor, who's turned his season around completely and has helped lead the charge. Ever since that player meeting they've had, they've been on fire. They sweep the Yankees in the season series. John, the Mets, we've had this conversation with them, right? Like what their ultimate deadline plans were. They're in it. They're in the wild card hunt. They're right in the thick of things. They just beat the Braves again last night. For you, and way you see Steve Cohen, David Stearns, can you just set the record straight? Pete Alonso's not going anywhere, right?
No, he's not going anywhere. And we've kind of been suggesting that for a while. I mean, we could say it for sure at this point. They're in playoff position, right? We got
Right.
we have 4 or 5 days to go, right? So you can't imagine that Pete Alonso is going to be traded. That doesn't make any sense at this point. They are a buyer. I don't think there's any question about that. I like the way you cite the players meeting as the turnaround. That's very intellectual of you compared to most people citing Grimace or OMG or something like that. So good for you, Ryan. I like to see that. I mean, I don't know if you might be a Harvard grad, because I mean, every
No,
other Met fan is citing Grimace and OMG, Candelita, Jose Iglesias.
it's a catchy
Uh,
song, John. You got to
it,
admit.
I don't know. It's not. I like Springsteen. I like Billy Joel. I'm 63 years old. It's fine. Anyway, uh, they're doing great. Lindor's clearly an MVP candidate, as I wrote about in the Post. He's got a 5 WAR now. He's only a little behind Ohtani. He's 5.5. The only one in between them is Ellie De La Cruz, so he's third in WAR. And I mean, no DH has ever won. I mean, obviously Ohtani's the favorite, but
Yeah.
no DH has ever won. No full-time DH, right? Don Baylor won his MVP in '79. He was playing mostly left field at that moment, so no DH has ever won. So I mean, Lindor's playing a great shortstop. He's hitting great. I know he stunk in April, which is why I didn't make the All-Star game, which is still ridiculous. He's got some stats, which I can't even remember what they are now, between doubles, stolen bases, hits, and all that only 14 guys did. He and Bobby Witt did it this year. Bobby Witt's an MVP candidate, right? And I think there are MVP candidates now. It's not all Aaron Judge at the moment. So he's an MVP candidate. Lindor should be an MVP candidate and great for the Mets. But yes, to answer your question, to get back to your question, the Mets are buyers and they're in great shape going into the deadline because they only need that bullpen, right? I don't see them going out and competing and giving up prospects for a starter. You've got Senga coming back tonight
Yep.
as we do this, right? Christian Scott's still there. They figure with Rust, maybe he'll be in there, but they have more than 5 viable starters. They're not going to go out and get a starter, I don't think. I don't see that. And in terms of the lineup, there is deep as anyone.
Yes.
Maybe they're not as good as the Phillies overall and a couple other teams, but they're as deep as anyone, particularly if McNeil continues on this
Yep.
tour. They had the walk-off last night, and before that, I mean, home runs against the Yankees, home runs in the previous series.
The
The
Marlins.
guy's
Yep.
hit, yeah, what has he hit? 4 home runs since the break.
Yep.
I mean, he's almost doubled his output. He's back to being a good hitter. They basically have hitters 1 through 9 on days that Iglesias plays, and I don't want to besmirch Tyrone Taylor. He had a huge game again against
Yeah.
Garrett Cole. He's another Cole
It's a
killer. He's
great
been
fourth
working on
outfielder for them.
Devers. Yeah, he's a good fourth outfielder. The other thing they could look at, I've heard, is a left-handed hitting outfielder. I mean, DJ Stewart, he walks a lot, not bad, but I think they could look at a little bit of an upgrade there. Can't imagine Jesse Winker because he's not a fan favorite at Citi Field, but there aren't a ton of left-handed hitting outfielders out there. So not even sure they're going to do that, but bullpen, they could live with just one or two bullpen pieces. They already got Maton, but right now, I mean, they're doing okay with Budo.
Yeah,
Nunez,
Budo last
right?
night again. He's been awesome for them in the bullpen.
Yeah, but what if one of them goes down and you never can count? And then you've got two. You're going to need more than three. Right now they
Right.
have three. Maton's a maybe, and of course, maybe Ottavino or Diekman will get back to their normal form. And Diekman had that big strikeout of
Yeah.
Judge. I mean, look, Mendoza's pressing all the right buttons right now. As much as we get on Aaron Boone at the moment, you got to give Mendoza credit.
Absolutely. I love what Carlos Mendoza's been doing with the Mets. Happy Jeff McNeil is what they're happy with right now. And to your point, the way he's been hitting.
Sarcastic? Happy Jeff? I don't know is that like Minnesota Nice, which is just obviously sarcastic? I don't know.
That's the way Jeff's been describing. He goes, "I'm happy Jeff McNeil now. The way I've been hitting." So
good for him. Good for him. I like that. Yeah, I mean, he takes it hard. He's competitive. There are people like that. It's okay. Yeah. He's got Lindor to Mr. Smiles to balance it out. So it's a good combination, right? Good infield combination.
I think you're hitting on a good point here with Mendoza too, right? Like a couple things that what else we should talk about with the Mets is they moved Lindor to that leadoff spot, and he's been brilliant ever since that point now, right? And McNeil's starting to heat up, and they're doing all this with the deep lineup. Francisco Alvarez, I love the way he plays baseball. He's awesome to watch. They're going to get Starling Marte back here in a couple weeks too, you would imagine. So that's going to be more help for their lineup. They're doing this without even much contribution for Pete Alonso in the middle of that lineup, which is what's amazing is that if they can somehow get him going, that lineup can be really scary for other teams to face and how you're going to attack them. It's that bullpen though, right? The bullpen is ultimately what's going to be the make or break for this team. If they, going in with like a 2-run lead late in the game, you're going to be sweating every game unless they get some bullpen out.
I agree with that. One thing to consider, though, is they've got so many starters that some of them can be bullpen pieces. Budo's already moved out there. Maybe McGill could move out there eventually, assuming Senga's okay. They got Lucchesi in the minors. They got a guy throwing 100 in the minors. They say they still need development on Brandon Sproat, but I mean, he could be a potential. So they got some potential in-house candidates. Like I said, the Mets are in great situation right now. They don't have a ton of needs. Their one need is bullpen. There's going to be many teams trading bullpen pieces. I know there's competition for these bullpen guys, and you're probably going to have to overpay, although the Mets have the money to overpay. Yeah. I mean, they basically bought Maton. They could buy another guy if they'd like to do that. And they're in an amazingly good situation. Nobody saw this coming, really. I did think they'd be a playoff team, but I mean, right now they've been, as you said, the hottest team in baseball, at least over the last week.
And John, let's move over to just the trade deadline itself, and we said at the beginning of the show, Randy Arozarena went, AJ Puck went. Can you tell me some of these other big names that you could see getting moved potentially here before the deadline on Tuesday?
Well, it's a very fluid situation. Every day we've got a new buyer or a new seller or somebody changes their mind. I mean, 1 or 2 games can throw things off. Right now, Texas, which could have been a great seller, they got a whole bunch of guys who are free agents after the year. I mean, obviously not just Scherzer. They've got Lorenzen, Gray, Leclerc, Kirby Yates, the All-Star closer, Robertson, and they look like a buyer now. I don't think any of those guys are going anywhere. It's good I named them all, but I think they're all staying where they are. San Francisco, they look like a seller at this point, right? I mean, they've got guys that Conforto. Could he be traded somewhere? I mean, you never know. I mean, maybe the Yankees would like Conforto. They've got their closer who's outstanding,
Miller
hard
Duvall.
thrower, Duvall, absolutely. Potentially he could be a trade piece. So they could be a seller at this point. The most interesting names out there, certainly you mentioned Vlad Guerrero earlier. I don't think that the Jays have the courage to do that. He's got a year to go. Easy for me to say they should be trading Vlad Guerrero. Look at the situation that they're in. Are they really going to compete next year with the Orioles or the Yankees? I don't see it. He's only got 1 year to go. They're in a tough spot. I get it. If it was me being there, I don't know if I'd have the courage either, but they're certainly talking, they're listening. The Mariners have made an offer, certainly for Guerrero. Houston was in on Guerrero. Maybe he could be traded. I doubt it at this moment, but I would say it's a possibility. Less of a possibility, Tarek Skubal, elite left-hander, maybe the best starting pitcher in baseball. Detroit's improved, and they've got 2 years to go with Skubal. I would be surprised if he is traded. Other teams are saying they're really not engaging. I've seen a lot of speculation out there. If he goes somewhere, you've got to think it's the Orioles, which does not help the Yankees, right? The Orioles should get a left hand. If you watch the Yankees at all, they're not that they're hitting right-handers that well.
They can't.
They're not hitting left-handers at all. They can't hit lefties. Now, maybe they'll be better with Stanton and Dominguez when they come back, and then certainly Stanton right-handed, Dominguez switch hitter. Maybe it'll be a little better, but if you're the Orioles, I'm looking at Kikuchi. I'm looking at any left-hander I can get, and Skubal is obviously number one. That's the guy to get, and they have the prospects to do it. I've seen out there Jackson Holiday speculation. I don't believe he'd go anywhere, but they have Kierstadt, they've got Cowser, they got a ton of positional prospects that they could potentially package for Skubal. But as I said, long shot that Tarek Skubal goes anywhere. Obviously, Tampa's a trader, so Paredes we've talked about. He could go somewhere.
What about Yandy Diaz?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Yandy Diaz.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know what's happening.
Okay.
Like you, Darvish, right? We haven't figured it out what's going on. But Yandy Diaz is their best player. And
yeah. Yeah, that's a weird one. And then
somebody trading for him at this moment, although there might be teams that knows what's going on.
And then finally, what's the situation with Garrett Crochet? I know I saw what you wrote last night about how, he wants a new deal if he's going to be pitching in October. Can you elaborate more on what the situation is with Garrett Crochet?
Yeah, obviously he's got injury concerns. I do not blame him whatsoever. He's making $800,000, which for me and you and most people is a ton of money, but that's not a ton of money if you're a baseball player and you have a limited career. And if you've watched what's going on with pitchers, you've got to be nervous. He's already had one Tommy John surgery. He's 12 innings last year. He's now thrown more. He started more games than anybody in the American League at this point, right? He struck out more guys than anybody in the American League. He's well over 100 innings. I think he's at 111 innings at this point. And he's willing to stay in the rotation every 5 days and pitch for whether it be the White Sox or any team that acquire him. But he won an extension if he's going to pitch in October. He's already going to be up from 11 innings to 200 innings. I can't really blame him at this point. What is he going to do? Throw away his career for 1 October for some team? I think it's a very, very unusual situation, and I get it. We reported that at the New York Post that he's going to want an extension to pitch in October for a playoff team. There might be some way to figure this out. Certainly the extension is one way to do it. That's very unlikely because it doesn't happen. I should say unusual, right? A new team sign a guy to an extension in the mid-year and with a couple days to figure it out, and maybe they can broaden the window by starting it now before they've actually made the trade. But it's tough, and there might be some other way to figure it out, some way around it. But it is a major monkey wrench into the trade situation. But like I said, I do not blame Garrett Crochet one bit. But there's another guy who may not go anywhere, and we'll throw Mason Miller in there too. I don't know if you saw the controversy there, but he slammed his fist down in frustration, and it was not over a loss. It apparently was over when they told him to go lift after the game. He didn't want to lift. Well, he is throwing 103.7 miles an hour. If I throw 103 miles an hour, I'm not sure how much I'd need to lift either, but he was assigned that by his boss, and we are employees. If your boss tells you to do something, you probably should just go ahead and do it, and he should have just gone and lifted. Instead, he slammed down his left hand a few times, and I saw it came out. Somebody MLB.com originally citing somebody, said somebody told him the wrong thing, that he awkwardly put his hand down, which is a little bit of a bizarre way to break your pinky to awkwardly put your hand down. I've heard of some errors and some mishaps, but that wasn't it. He was at a temper tantrum. So, I mean, he wasn't going to get traded anyway. In 5 years of control to go. But we have Miller not getting traded. We have Bo Bichette, who's hurt, not getting traded. And we have Crochet, at least a monkey wrench that makes it difficult to acquire him. And we'll see what happens there. But certainly, it's a fluid situation, and stuff happens every day toward the trade deadline.
Absolutely. I know this next 5 days are going to be chaotic for you, especially to see how each one of these teams, to your point, how it develops, who develops into a buyer, who develops into a seller. Finally, John, let's bring this all home. Your most disappointing team of the week. Who is it? I think I have a feeling I know who it
Well,
is,
we're
but I
not
want
going
to
to
hear
spend
it.
too much time on it, and I'm not going to pick your Yankees, who I've picked a few times in this month-long thing. I mean, it's got to be the White Sox, right? They've lost 11 in a row. I mean, I heard that their manager, Pedro Grofal, gave them a talk around the start of the second half about not wanting to beat the 1962 Mets record, and the reaction was not good, apparently, at least in terms of on the field, as they haven't won a game since. 11 straight losses, and look out, 1962 Mets, here they come. So sorry to disappoint you. Your Yankees did not make it this week, although they've made it a couple weeks in the past. It is the White Sox.
John, we appreciate you as always for going around the bases. We're going to be looking forward to seeing you covering the MLB deadline as the deals come through. And stay safe out there, man. I know it's going to be a long couple of nights and days for you. Appreciate you as always, man.
All right, good talking to you, Ryan.
Thank you.